From Capitol Public Radio in Sacramento, this is Insight. I'm Beth Ruyak. The legislature crossing an important finish line yesterday, voting to pass the new budget plan that had been announced on Friday. Joining me from the state capitol, Senate President Pro Tem Darrell Steinberg. Hello, Senator Steinberg. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Beth. How are you?
Good. And State Senate Minority Leader Bob Huff is joining us as well. Senator Huff, thanks for joining us, too.
Good morning, Beth.
So, Senator Steinberg, let's start. This is your final budget. State Senators Pro Tem, your era ends today, and there has been quite a dramatic shift in budgets that you've dealt with over the years, culminating with this one.
Well, no question about it. I mean, Beth, this year's budget has a lot to be proud of. We made a major stride towards universal preschool for low-income 4-year-olds. We increased education funding by about $10 billion. We got another $250 million to re-engineer high schools' career pathways. We made a huge investment in public infrastructure, transit, commuter rail, and affordable housing, in addition to the high-speed rail. We restored some of the safety net cuts. But I think, all in all, what is most significant is how far we have come over the 6 years that I've been privileged to serve as leader. When I started, we had a $42 billion deficit. And now we've got a budget surplus. We're paying down debt. We've got a plan to pay off the pension obligations. We have a rainy day fund. And we are slowly but surely managing to restore and reinvest. It's not perfect, but it's hard to get much better than that.
Well, I'm going to echo some of your words to Senator Huff, and those words would be, you don't always get what you want. So from the Republican standpoint, give me your read on the budget based on that thought.
Well, we didn't get anything we wanted.
There you go.
When we're not at the table, obviously some of the things we agree with, some of the things we don't agree with, but we don't even have a voice to, massage the pieces together as we used to do. So I think that is actually a disservice to the state of California, but, it is what it is. Certainly, if we were putting this together, we wouldn't have done some of the things that were in there. But, all things considered, as I said last night to folks asking, the governor's framework that he set out was good. It was sound, and some people have touted that this is more or less the governor's budget. But it is more spending and less paying off debt, so that part is true. We certainly wouldn't have restricted local schools and how to manage their resources. I think that was probably the most egregious thing about this budget, where we plopped something in at the last minute, which was totally a giveaway to the teacher unions and the people that actually have to make the schools work. The administrators were crying foul from across the state. And something like this really ought to be vetted in policy committee, and there's been some explanations. It's not as bad as we think, but, they're just words, because we don't have the people, the analyses coming in to see how it'll actually be implemented. So I think that we have really done a disservice to the budget process when we put major policy in like that. And certainly another thing that we got, which we didn't want, was cash welfare grants for drug felons. There's a reason that they have not been provided those in the past. I mean, you give a drug addict, and there's a really, really high recidivism rate at that. You give them cash access to that, they're going to go out and buy more drugs. So, it's just a real problem. But, having said the negative side of it, all in all, it wasn't a bad budget. If we had been presented this back in the height of the recession, we would have, jumped on it, I'm sure. But keeping in mind that we still have Prop 30, which propped up the revenues with the tax increases that the folks gave us that are so-called temporarily. Our biggest concern is probably that as we create more ongoing spending, we're going to reach a cliff, and that'll be artificial pressure then to keep those taxes alive.
I'm surprised you didn't put high-speed rail on that list.
Well, I'm one of those guys that actually supported high-speed rail in the first place, and at some point it became too top-heavy, and so I think down the road, maybe 50 years from now, we'll be happy if we have high-speed rail. It certainly has created anger across the state when there's other priorities, and as a group, we would prefer to be paying off other infrastructure, fixing the potholes in the roads we have, helping build our water system, and I actually like the idea of building light rail and other rail services where the people live in the Bay Area and L.A. area and San Diego.
What we've got ahead of us is this package of 18 trailer bills. And you already addressed the fact that you felt like the budget was a moving train that you didn't have much of a chance to jump onto. What about the trailer bill process?
Well, the trailer bill process has become something it's not related to the budget in many cases. There's major policy that is now being done because a budget only takes a majority vote. So they rather than go through committee hearings on a lot of these things, they just drop it into a trailer bill and pass it as part of a budget. In fact, I was chiding the majority last night that on some of these things there was no rush to do it because we tend to have rolling budgets now anyway. We get the budget in principle done on the 15th. And then we tend to have more trailer bills that evolve over the next few weeks. In fact, we did a trailer bill last night that helped implement last year's budget.
It's true, isn't it? It's an endless process. Mm-hmm.
Yep, it is endless. And so, that's frustrating as they have major policy and they do a lot of things a majority vote that really ought to be two-thirds vote. Whether we have two-thirds or not, it should be a higher threshold of passing.
Would you weigh in a little bit on the bigger Republican politics right now with Eric Cantor's loss and Kevin McCarthy perhaps being voted in, and in our own state what we saw with Tim Donnelly and Neil Kashkari in the primary?
Well, obviously, there's a lot of moving parts. In D.C., the Republicans have a strong voice holding the House. In Kevin McCarthy, being a guy from California that's been in the legislature here, been the minority leader in the Assembly, clearly he helps us as he rises in power. It looks like he will be, getting that second number 2 slot, which I think helps strengthen our hand out here. When you look... try to look at it dispassionately, and of course it's difficult for me to do that, but we do have strong leadership on the Dem side from California as well, and California generally gets short shrift on the tax monies that go back to D.C., so hopefully we'll see at least whatever that pie is, that there's some coming back here for our own infrastructure and needs. But as far as California itself, I think the people are getting very frustrated with partisan politics. You continue to see the decline to state going up. The decision was real easy for me to get behind Neil Kashkari because as I looked at my contested seats, and in the Senate we're looking at protecting a couple of seats and picking up one to stay beyond that super minority that we currently find ourselves. And Neil helped me in all 3 of my seats, and Donnelly, frankly, didn't help. So, I think that as you see the Republicans back rebounding, and I believe that we are under the leadership of Senator Jim Brulte as the chairman now, that we are trying to focus more on the things we agree on instead of fighting about the things we don't agree on, and that's a real challenge. But I think there is hope. I think we're going the right direction, and I also applaud Kevin McCarthy for what looks to be, the number 2 slot back in Congress. It'll be good for California.
One last question. You said earlier that you didn't get anything in this budget, but is there any Republican mark on it anywhere?
Well, I'd have to think about that. I think the Republican mark is really the governor's mark. The rainy day fund is something that we've been looking for a long time. I guess and I'm glad that he spelled that out early on and that we were able to be a part of that as it took a 2/3 vote to get there. We made it a little more robust than it would have been. So that would be the mark that we had on it. It's frustrating, though, to see the last-minute end run that the teacher unions did to, in effect, hobble the local school districts to build prudent reserves. Many of them only made it through the tough times because they had reserves to draw upon without having to lay off more people. And now we from the state are going to tell them, you can't build prudent reserves. That's just nonsense. So they're going to rely on the state and our rainy day fund to bail them out now, and that's just not good local control.
Well, I believe that what you're talking about is a subject of more that will be discussed. I think Dan Walters wrote about it today, but it's a pleasure to have you on the program. Congratulations for reaching the budget deadline, but we have more to talk about ahead, so we'll invite you back as well.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Beth.
Thank you very much, Senator Huff.